IPL, Michael Slater, what do you make of this whole situation in the Maldives, pinging the Prime Minister? Look, there's some talk that it might be one of the undercards on the next Paul Gallen fight.
Yes, something like that, mate. Michael Slater should stick to working out which way the ball is going to swing, but beyond that, he doesn't do his homework, and he gets very cranky very easily, Michael Slater. Calling the Prime Minister and accusing him of having blood on his hands. Well, the Prime Minister didn't cause the wave that they're experiencing in India right now. The Prime Minister did not solely ban Australians from returning. That was primarily the Chief Medical Officer, not Scott Morrison. I don't know whether he wants a political career, Michael Slater, but if he does, he better learn to do his homework before he starts mouthing off. He was wrong. Now, what we have got is, on May 15, we've got an empty Howard Springs Detention Centre. What this has done, it's brought us a whole heap of time to put many of these returned travellers from India into adequate facilities in the Northern Territory where they can convalesce. If need be, they'll get medical treatment. It was a way of pausing. It was an idea that came from the medical officer, not Scott Morrison. I think Michael Slater should stick to cricket and keep his hands well and truly away from politics.
I think one of the things, sorry to interrupt, one of the things that impressed with most of those talking from the subcontinent, whether they be a cricketer or a commentator or a coach or some assistant, an Australian in there, was how they deferred their conversation to being very empathetic to the actual Indian population that was going through and is continuing to go through this horrific scene and distancing themselves from it, because they were all staying in five-star hotels in bubbles and travelling to the Maldives.
Yeah, there are two different scenarios here. It's okay for them to go to the Maldives, sit on their banana chair and sip their cocktails and talk about how tough it is in India. There's some irony associated with that. But having said that, Australian cricketers have had a great deal of empathy for people in India, even way before the pandemic. You think about Steve Waugh's time there, Brett Lee's time there and his role both on television and in the commercial domain. We've had a lot of time for India. They said the right thing, the cricketers, but I thought accusing the Prime Minister was well and truly out of line. But can I just add one thing about India? What we've got is a situation where we can do very little except help with aid, and that's what we're doing. We've sent over 2 plane loads of aid and medical equipment, etc. We are doing as much as we can. These things happen. This is a poverty-stricken, terrible part of the world in terms of having a crisis. They don't cope well. We can only keep our fingers crossed and do what we can for them to make sure that they can get through it in the foreseeable future.
Chris, what are your thoughts on the Tokyo Olympics? The AOC President John Coates said it's absolutely going ahead. We've seen the protests in Tokyo itself. What do you think is going to happen?
You know, I'm glass half full on the Tokyo Olympics. Yes, there's probably a majority in Tokyo who are going through their second wave who are saying, oh, why are we doing this? But I just think about the great boost that the AFL and in particular the NRL games in 2020 gave to the population of Australia. When very little else was on, we were locked down, and especially Victoria. The fact that we had sport to watch, the fact that we could have entertainment, the fact that life was partially back to normal, I think was a big boost to Australians. And the same thing could happen to the rest of the world during an Olympic Games in Tokyo. I think it'll be fantastic, especially for the countries who are doing it extra tough, unlike Australia. And I'm hearing John Coates. I've spoken to him both on and off air, and he sees that the Olympic movement needs to play a role in getting people through the pandemic. And that's not about, you know, making them medically better. It's about making them mentally better. And I think the Olympic Games can do that.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I'd much prefer a can-do mentality. Obviously, there's challenges. Obviously, you need to put all the protocols and everything else in place. So it's logistically becomes a nightmare, but it's worth doing. We saw with Peter V'landys last year and him marching forward towards that May date and what that line in the sand did. It was extraordinary. And that's the kind of mentality that we need.
Yeah, I agree. You know, you think about in India, they're locked down in little shanties, but they've got their little television there, and the Olympic Games are on, and maybe they can shout and scream for someone on the subcontinent who's representing either India or the area. And what a buzz that would be in the middle of everything that is so bad and horrible.
And just quickly, Chris, Sydney or the Greater Sydney region are in some restrictions this weekend. Gladys Berejiklian is known to have been doing it right in terms of the COVID situation. How do you think she's gone with this particular situation?
I'm loath to criticise Gladys Berejiklian, but I thought we knee-jerked a bit here. All of a sudden, we were waiting to see whether there was a community transmission from the gentleman, of course, who somehow got the virus from someone inside hotel quarantine. So as soon as his wife does, and bear in mind, they're in the same house, she should be positive. And all of a sudden, we've got restrictions again and people are wearing masks again in department stores, etc. We've had no positive outcomes in the past 2 days. I think she's being extra careful. I don't think we needed to ramp up to the next level. There were charity events. I remember I was destined to go to one on Friday night with 500 people. That was called off completely because of these two positives in the one household. Look, I think we can get through this. And I know this bloke went to Bunnings and tried to buy barbecues galore and etc. And he went to a lot of public places. But I think we've learnt to move away from each other in public scenarios where we keep our distance. And so it does not surprise me at all that despite the fact that he went to many, many places, that we have no further community transmission. And I think, fingers crossed, today we'll learn the same thing at 11 o'clock. We can get through this.
You've got to laugh and smile at some of it, though, haven't you? The guy went to like 16 barbecue shops. I wonder if he got the Weber that he wanted. It's like watching these people like that Queensland doctor going to all the Macca's drive-thrus. It's like an insight into humanity, isn't it, when you see what they've done?
I want to sit down and interview him and ask him about the barbecue industry because he'd know more than anyone else.
Oh, funny stuff. Well, good to see you, Chris. And, of course, enjoy your day.